Hi and welcome to my Wildlife Year week 35. I started last week's my Wildlife Year video talking about plant galls, and I mentioned this book here, my Britain's Plant Galls book, Wild Guides, and I said there was another one that I really quite liked and wanted to get hold of, which was the Aid Gap book on British plant galls from the Field Studies Council, and I said it was a bit expensive at £30. Well, not long after that, making that video, I thought, wonder whether it's turned up on eBay at all. I check fairly regularly for things like this on eBay just to see whether I've got in, and guess what? It was there! This, which retails for £30, I got for under a tenner. Quite a bit under a tenner, in fact, included postage and package. So I am really pleased. It's a cracking book. I've just got it this morning, so I've not really had much time to do it. But it goes into a bit of more details. This Britain's Plant Galls, as I told you, was they've split it into 3 types, which was oaks, then other trees and shrubs, and then herbaceous plants, galls that affect them. Well, this book here is slightly different. It has split it into galls caused by bacteria, fungi, other plants, nematodes, and also sort of other insects and mites. So I'm really looking forward to getting some use out of this book. So I am so pleased. So anyway, enough of me sort of like getting very excited over a gall book. Let's crack on with my Wildlife Year week 35. Now, I've got a very young wood mouse here. It's very small. I notice it's just very close to the camera here. Very young wood mouse. So I've now got a decision to make. Do I release it close to the house where just going to probably end up back in the kitchen? Do I release it down at the release? In the bits I recorded, I was explaining how I was getting ready for taking part in one of my wife's services, and I thought, well, I have to talk about my wife being a minister, and obviously I have faith, I'm a Christian. Don't make a big thing of it in my Wildlife Year videos, but I thought this time I would share this part of the church service I took part in, not because it's just about my faith, but also it is actually about wildlife, and it's part of my Wildlife Year. So I thought I'd share it with you. So here you go. I'm trusting Rachel with IT, and Rachel's trusting me to ad-lib this. So I don't know who's braver. Right, so Rachel just told the story of the very hungry caterpillar. It starts off, the caterpillar at the end goes into a cocoon, and I'm going up to.
Yeah, look, we had it study.
Oh no. Yeah, caterpillar goes into a cocoon, and it starts to form a cocoon. And in the cocoon, it's actually amazing what happens. I don't really know what happens in a caterpillar's cocoon. Basically, it turns into liquid. It literally just goes into a loop inside the cocoon and then reforms into a caterpillar. And we're not actually 100% sure how it actually works, because it just sort of like, it just happens. It's sort of like, I think it's one of those miracles of nature. I think it's one of those things that actually proves God exists, because how else can it possibly work? That something can literally go from one thing into another. And inside, it turns into the butterfly. It comes out of its cocoon. It's all wet, and its body is usually a lot bigger, and what it does is it then pumps the liquid that's in its body out into its wings form, and it becomes a nice big butterfly. If I remember right, this is a monarch butterfly.
That's what you told us.
Yes, it is. Which is the classic butterfly that appears in a lot of things, and we don't get it in this country. I've done stuff before, and they've had monarch butterflies. I've seen Graeme's got to come talking about wildlife, and I've been pictures of monarch butterflies, and I'm sort of thinking, if people are going to expect me to talk about monarch butterflies, I'm going to be disappointed. But one question I'm sometimes asked is, what's the difference between a butterfly and a moth? And it's quite an interesting question because some people say butterflies sit with their wings up like that and moths flat. But then there's the canary-shouldered thorn, which is a cracking name for a moth, but it sits with us up like that. And then others will say, well yes, but the moth wings point backwards. But then there's pug species that sit like that. And then others will say, but butterflies have club-shaped antennae, their antennae come out and they form wee clubs, whereas moths have very feathery antennas. Most moths do, but there's the burnet moths, which are day-flying moths, and they have club-shaped antennae. So the question is, how do you tell the difference between a butterfly and a moth? And the answer is you can't. Because you can't even say butterflies fly during the day and moths at night, because the burnet moth that I talked about there also flies during the day. So there's not a lot of difference between them. In fact, there's not really any difference between them other than that we've given them names of butterflies and moths. But in case you don't know what one looks like, I have brought some butterflies and some moths. I was out yesterday running around the garden with my net, and then last night, I'm not expecting you to see from there, but what we've got is, see, in here, those ones flying about just now, they are they're large yellow underwing moths, although the underwings are actually orange, but their name's listed yellow underwing. And there's a couple of small whites in there. They're the ones that, well, one of the species that the caterpillar eat all your brassicas, always plants in the nasturtiums, because they love nasturtiums more than your cabbages, but plants are near there.
You didn't tell me that this spring.
And in the back here, we've actually got a couple of lovely peacock butterflies, but they're just, I think they're actually just wanting to go in, although we're still not quite at autumn yet, I think they're wanting to head into hibernation. So, what I'll do is, at the end of the service, I'll take this out the front so that as you're leaving, you can have a look at the butterflies. So, and the moths. The moths, the large yellow underwings are probably a medium-sized moth. They look quite big in that, but you might be surprised by how big they are. They're about that size. But they're actually a medium-sized moth. The hawk moths are sort of like, they can be about that across and that long, the poplar hawk moth especially. I was hoping to get one of them maybe overnight, but unfortunately not. So that's the difference between moths and butterflies, which there isn't really any. So, but yes, but I'll let you see them on the way out. Right, so finished off last week's My Wildlife here with putting some butterflies in this big flight cage here. There's another peacock over there, there's one resting up here, and also a couple of small whites, one there and one down there. But also in here you'll see I've got some moths. I also put the moth trap out last night. So into Sunday morning there would be some moths for the service that I'm, what is it called? If I Were a Butterfly service my wife did. So I took this flight cage along and showed everyone the moths and the butterflies. So the butterflies have been in since late yesterday afternoon, and the moths just from this morning, so I'm just going to go and release them now after I take some nice photos, close-up photos of them. Here's a lovely peacock butterfly. Peacock butterflies are funny creatures because they actually don't look like peacock butterflies at all when they've got their wings closed. A lot of people think they're colourful on both sides, but they're not. They're only colourful on the one. But let's see if I can just prise this. There it goes. Look at that. How pretty is that? That is gorgeous, isn't it? Look at those big eyes. You can see where it gets its name, the peacock butterfly, from. Here's the other peacock butterfly. Look how iridescent those wings are. I'll put some light on it. Look at them. Wow. just look amazing. Basically, they look like something that should be in a tropical country, not something that's, in Scotland where it's dark and cold and damp a lot of the time. So they really are a beautiful butterfly. And they're one of the few butterflies in the UK that actually hibernate. So get peacock butterflies occasionally inside here, but quite often in the outbuildings, peacock butterflies turn up over winter. But you don't notice them because they've got their wings closed, kind of like that, and just showing the black underside, really dark underside, and you don't really notice them if they're up in a dark corner somewhere. Here we've got one of the small whites. Small whites and the large whites look very similar, but it's slight differences in the pattern. The small white has much smaller spots on its wings, which you can just barely see under here. They're underneath another side of that wing, and also the small white is, not surprisingly, a bit smaller. So this is a bit of a tatty one. Oh, there it goes. You can see it's the dots in its wings there, and the little shaded bit at the top. So lovely small white. This small white's a bit fresher, not quite as raggedy looking, and it's showing off its clubbed antenna. This is I mentioned, I think it was last week, I was talking about the difference between moths and butterflies. Butterflies have clubbed antenna, and moths on the whole are feathered, but I did say that it's impossible really to have one row for moths and one row for butterflies. Burnet moths, most likely burnet moth, they have clubbed antenna too. So you can't say that if it's got clubbed antenna it's a butterfly, and if it's not, it's a moth. There's always exceptions to the rules, and I'm hoping that this one might open up its wings. No, it's not opened up its wings. What it's done is flown onto my hand. So it's now climbing onto my thumb. Oh, there it goes. There it is in the window, showing off its wings quite nicely now. So I'll pop it in a tub and pop it back outside. Here's one of the large yellow underwings that I had at the church service as well. They're called large yellow underwings, but the underwings are actually orange. Bit of a misnomer, but hey ho, it's it's not really the end of the world, especially as I'm colourblind, so I can see it as orange, but sometimes I see other colours as one thing and everyone else sees them as something else, so I'm not too fussed about colours actually when it comes to things like identification. I normally go with the pattern or how something's moving or its behaviour rather than going by colour. You can see here there's quite a bit of variation in the large yellow underwing. In fact, there can be even more variation in this, but these three do show some of the variation there can be. So here's all 9 large yellow underwings that I caught, and you can see there's quite a bit of difference in some of their colourings and their shadings. This one up here's actually just starting to shake a bit. That's it trying to warm itself up. As well as the moths that I caught in the moth trap for that service, I also caught some other stuff. Have a look at this. I'm really pleased to have this book back out, Any Excuse, because I got a carrion beetle in the moth trap last night. So, looking through this one, I know which one it is, and it's this one. Necrophorus investigator, and it's called the banded burying beetle. And you can see this one's actually got lots of mites on it, and this one does too. I don't know whether you're able to see it on it. Just now. Have a closer look in a second. This is quite similar to Eninterruptus, but it's not. There's actually, just looking at its tail end, you can actually tell it's not, because basically it's just got some coloured hairs on its very terminus of its rear end, whereas the other one has it right the way down its rear end. So, able to tell which one this is. You can see all those mites on it just now. It'll be hitch and lift to the next bit of carrion, and also just keeping the carrion beetle clean, preventing detritus that ends up in it too. Here you can see the light coloured hairs at the end of its tail I was just talking about a second ago. Look at how many mites it's got on it. It's not the most I've ever seen in a carrion beetle, but it's still a fair number. The other thing is, you can't tell, but there's a wee bit of a smell of carrion beetles too. Yeah, it don't smell that great. And they also wee a lot, as you can see there. Well, it's really brightened up in the last 10 minutes. It was raining and a bit yucky, and it's brightened up and sun's come out. So anyway, I'm heading to Denhamdean. I'm meeting Nicky from Borders Forest Trust, and we're just going to look at some of the work that's needed in doing the Dean, which is part of the woodlands owned by the community, and I'm sort of on the group that manages it. So I'm going to discuss with her what's to be done. So Denhamdean here is owned by the community. As I said, it was gifted to the community by a renowned botanist, Michael Braithwaite, who lives locally. And not all the Dean's owned by the community, but the bit that's obviously gifted by Michael was it's managed with a management committee as part of a local community group in conjunction with Borders Forest Trust. And a Dean, I should say, is basically there's a water course running down to either a river or sometimes a sea, and it's wooded on both sides, and both like that. So that's what a Dean is. So anyway, that's a Dean. So we've got to have a look round and see what he's doing. One of the issues there's been at the Dean, and hopefully it's now stopped, is people just dumping garden rubbish over the edge. You can actually see here, this is Solomon's seal, and it's obviously been dumped here and grown. So we don't really want non-natives like that. That's a large area of snowberry, which again we don't really want in. That, who knows how it got here. Snowberry can turn up a lot of places. It's quite invasive and basically shadows out other plants, so it's not a great plant to be in a place you want to encourage wildlife. More snowberry behind me. It can be a right pain to get rid of and take a lot of work, but it's worth it in the end because it lets in more light and therefore there's more ground flora, which means it's good for the invertebrates and further up the food chain. Right, well, down by the Cheviot, taking Dexter a walk with Rachel, and we're just having a wee sit down, and beside me I've got some Himalayan Balsam. Himalayan Balsam, if you don't already know, is obviously non-native, bit of a clue in the name Himalayan, and it's also quite invasive. Now, some invasives like giant knotweed, Japanese knotweed, and also giant hogweed, they shade out plants and don't let them grow. Not so much with Himalayan Balsam. However, what it does do is attract lots of insects. I'm just trying to see whether there's any bees in it just now. There was a second ago 3 or 4 buzzing about in it. So it attracts insects, and insects love it, which you might think that's actually really good, surely, Graeme, but it's not, because what happens is they go to the Himalayan Balsam, and if there's lots of Himalayan Balsam around, that's all they feed on, and that's all they pollinate, and they're not pollinating our native wildflowers. So Himalayan Balsam is not really good news at all. And the other problem is that look, there's a bee in that one there. Don't know whether you'll be able to see there. It's coming out. It's a common carder. And if you've never come across it before, when you touch the seed pods, they explode. They've actually got quite a force in them, and the seeds can go several metres. And you can hear, I'm just by the TV, some of the seeds will end up in the river or in a stream, and they'll go down the stream, and then it spreads like that, so it can be quite invasive. So Himalayan Balsam is not good news. Right, well, I'm just out collecting the mud trap, and I'm going to catch some butterflies later this morning to take to a little educational event that my wife's organised for groups she does called Little Fishies. It's basically a mums and toddlers group, and also it's going to run in just after the schools finish at lunchtime, so young ones before that, and then once school's finished, anyone that wants to come along after school with their mum or dad or whoever's picking them up can come in and see the moths and butterflies as well. So really looking forward to it. Right, we're in, this is a new gazebo that the church has got for the mums and toddlers group, which is called Little Fishies, in case you want to know. And got my butterfly enclosure up again. Got a couple of, I don't know how you can see at the top, just there, that's a couple of peacocks, and there's some large yellow underwings, some common marbled carpets, and right down the bottom on the floor there's an autumnal rustic. I think that's all that's in there, just to show the kids when they come, some close up as well. I've got one of each that I've just mentioned. Actually I've got 2 common marbled carpets, because they can be quite different. So I've got two of the variations here. A large yellow underwing, an autumnal rustic, but also a rosy rustic, a common rustic, and also a very ragged willow beauty. You normally find them up to August, but this one here's hanging on to September, but it's looking really, really rough. And on the table here, we've got craft stuff. We'll do some craft stuff out of that table as well. The kids, so that we can get them to make a little caterpillar, and we'll cut out some butterfly wings, and then they can decorate the wings, and the caterpillar can become a lovely butterfly. So that's what we're going to do once the school's out. So really looking forward to it. It'll be really good to do sort of wildlife craft event after so long.
Right, you have to be careful with it. Just a little bit of glue.
John, can you pass me the
I need more
please?
bubbles. I need some of these.
Are they from your house?
Nope, they're not from our. And then
Feather.
Well, this twig here has just been dropped as a wood pigeon flew out that tree, so that kind of leads me to believe that although it's the start of September, that they're somewhere up there. I know that they sometimes nest along there, but maybe they're going for this tree now, or maybe it's a different pair of wood pigeons are going to be trying to build a nest and hatch some young quite late in the year. But wood pigeons do breed just about all through the year if it's mild enough, so it'll be interesting to see whether we get any young. A couple of months ago I got a Wi-Fi security camera when I was through at my dad's, and I set it up there, and I've had it out the back since, and I've shown a few things, but I haven't shown anything on it recently. I've got it set up, it's recording 24 hours a day. Well, it's not recording 24 hours a day, it's on 24 hours a day, and it records if it's tripped. It records up to the cloud, and there hasn't been that much of interest really on it. Odd blackbirds and other birds, quite a few cats, the local cats could pass, and the other night I got a cat tripped it, but the cat walks out of view and look who walks in. However, that wasn't sort of like, you know, the greatest hedgehog video in the world. So what I did was I decided to move it round, move the camera slightly round the back of the sort of like little sort of like kennel type thing we use for Dexter to have some shade, and put out some bait, and sure enough, the following night this happened. And there's a second video as well, and if you actually look closely in this video, you can actually see that it's a male hedgehog. Hedgehogs, if you have the angle of the camera just right, it's fairly obvious that they are males. So that's my wildlife year, week 35 over and done with. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to next week. I'll be I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also a bit nervous about it because part of it is actually involves 7 people I've booked on my first online owl pellet analysis workshop, and I'm still not sure how that's going to go, but we'll see. If it doesn't go well, I won't be doing another one, but if it goes well, I'll be doing some more. I've also got an introduction to small mammal workshop booked for the Monday the 13th of September at 7 p.m. That costs £12. You can book onto that through the link in my bio if you're interested, and I'll be running more workshops like that, I'm sure, in the future, and I'm developing another couple in my head at the moment, and that's about it, I think. So I'm looking forward to next week and seeing what happens in my wildlife year, week 36. See you then, take care, stay safe, and then keep enjoying the wildlife. Bye.